Merepek, Kelaka. What was supposed to be an afternoon of seeking answers and clarifications over the FIFA falsification of documents scandal became comedy afternoon. A, a very legit comedy or entertainment for the curious football fans and casual onlookers who were watching this afternoon's live streaming. What they were hoping for in terms of clarifications and answers, as I said at the start, gave way to tepid defense, is very mild to put it. Very mild. The hapless FVN Deputy President Datuk S. Sivasundaram became the lightning rods of what really went all awfully wrong in this press conference, especially in what was expected to be a tense affair, especially with the Malaysian media having already prepared questions and demanding clarity, accountability, and complete answers from the guys in the spotlight over what they are going to do next, over what is the next course of action, and what is their strategy over this documentation, the falsification of documents scandal. Instead, what we got was the first one that was pretty clear in a nutshell. FAM Secretary General Noor Azman Hamzah has been suspended indefinitely for his part in extenuating the crisis or causing the crisis. Secondly, what has been clear is FM has hired a top sports lawyer to spearhead the legal team in which the team has filed an appeal to FIFA on the 14th of October, the deadline day in which all appeal documents are to be submitted to FIFA's appeals committee for consideration in their mitigation, in hope of reducing both the fines imposed on the National Association as well as the 7 affected players who are currently still banned from playing until they are either cleared by the FIFA Appeals Board or after the final adjudication from the Court of Arbitration of Sports, or in the worst case scenario, serve out the entire 1 year suspension before they can resume playing football again. So the Malaysian media, as we know, especially in some quarters, can be very sharp, can be eagle-eyed, and they are pointed in wanting clear, definitive answers. But instead, what we got was an investigating committee. The only thing the poor chap in the center of this spotlight at the press conference could answer was an investigations committee and yet another investigations committee, and scrambling for answers when he had no idea what's going on. And this sums up the entire Football Association of Malaysia in a nutshell on what have they been doing all this while. Did they let the now suspended General Secretary run operations as he pleased while the executive committee or the council sat idly by, or worse? Siva Sundaram was not fully briefed by Acting President Yusof Mahadi or other members of the council because it's a very closely guarded thing among a select few. And it's also pretty clear that Datuk S. Sivasundaram and Harimau Malaya CEO Rob Friend are not exactly on the same page. It was supposed to be a show of a united front, but it became a show of two very different bodies. One with some idea what they were supposed to do, one still scrambling for answers even for rather elementary questions. Especially the very first question that came out, my card. But before I go further into those questions and how they fumbled and scampered around as they tried in vain to to, you can say, making desperate clearances or hoofing the ball in hope in football speak. I think it's pretty clear that from the very beginning, the FAM deputy president, Siva Sundaram, is in a very awkward and uncomfortable position. You can see how his mouth really twitched from the very get go and from the way how he projected his voice aside. Reading from the script is one thing, but the way he uttered it is more like he's forcing himself to speak louder than usual. And I mean, I'm going to make some mouth movements. I think you can see what uh, the FM deputy president was exactly doing. He was totally not prepared for this show. He was Nobody in FAM had told him the full extent of this blowout. Nobody had given him any consideration. Okay, this is how you're supposed to prepare. This is probably what the Malaysian media are supposed to be asking. The type of questions that they could be asking, and what is he supposed to answer. And also, from the way how they presented the answers and the way you can say this is really a comedy night, comedy afternoon rather. It's like, well, I look at you and you look at me. What is happening? Really? What is happening? I mean, from the way Siva Sundaram started reading the script, needing to lick his tongue, flipping paper, the script to read the script of the script, it clearly showed that his grasp of this situation, which is damningly poor, when even your football fans, the local diehard football fans, the Ultras Malaya, had a much stronger grasp of the situation compared to the deputy president. No wonder Yusof Mahadi was elevated from a vice president to be the acting president and not the supposed second in command who was supposed to be the one succeeding him. I think it's pretty obvious why now. And secondly, where is Dr. Yusof Mahadi, the acting president? Sure, he was in Riyadh. He was supposedly attending the AFC Awards evening, and when FAM was awarded a prize, I think the silver award for the best football association, it was FIFA council member and FAM honorary president Tan Sri Hamidin Amin who came up to collect the prize. Yusof Mahadi was somehow nowhere to be seen. It's like you're asking the vice captain who was previously who was not preparing for the hot seat to suddenly be parachuted to face the fire. It's like, I'm only giving you training for just a simple gun. Now I need you to fire a semi-automatic machine gun. Just like that. That is exactly how S. Siva Sundaram was behaving and portraying in this press conference. It is natural for FM to be on the defensive, but the way in which he read out the statement, and also the way in which he had read it out without thinking, and at the same time, once the questions started firing in from all quarters from the media, there was nowhere to hide. Nowhere. That was how poor this entire press conference was. And yes, the Malaysian media were critical of the way in which Harimau Malaya CEO Rob Friend and their sports lawyer Sergei Vitos, in how they answered some of the questions that were thrown at them. But at least both Rob Friend and Serge Vitos kept largely a poker face compared to the three of them. And out of the three of them, two of them were supposed to be preparing for Deepavali in a few days' time. This must be a nightmare that will be haunting Siva Sundaram and the other Indian on the panel. They must be wondering why were they thrown in to face the sharks when their minds were probably tuned towards Deepavali or Diwali in just a few days' times. This must be a nightmare that will still ring that will still be ringing in their heads long after this press conference is over. Because whatever is said has been recorded, however he portrayed has been streamed live, however he has spoken, however he has tried to defend the organization, it has been it has been put on pen to paper and on videos, and also the words that he uttered, there is no way he can hide. No way. And it all hell broke loose from that very first question on my card, the Malaysian IC. The moment this journalist asked that question on my card, suddenly Siva Sudaram appeared very lost. It's like, what happened? It's the basic thing for Malaysians. And he's a Malaysian. The two on his right are Malaysians. Rob, Friend and Vitor's aren't. So, the moment he started turning, and all three locals did not know how to answer this, and it was a probably straightforward one. My only educated guess is they probably knew something, but they can't say it at this moment. They didn't want the press to go out and go onto a brutal onslaught that would totally leave them with no choice but to resign en masse. Already, they had already lost Johari Ayub a couple of months ago. And now, Nor Azman Hamzah has been suspended from his duties as the General Secretary. So right now, there is nobody at the top who is overseeing the day-to-day operations inside the Football Association of Malaysia headquarters in Kelana Jaya. And then you have this very shambolic press conference. So shambolic, I think it's better not to even have a press conference, or, although the Malaysian press will not like this, have a press conference but no Q&A, knowing that this is what is likely to happen. They probably have wanted the transparency, to have some kind of accountability where the journalists could ask questions so that those on the panel could give proper answers in hope. But it appeared that only Friend and Vitos were able to somewhat give some kind of answers. Siva Sudaram and the two locals on their hand were regurgitating points that he said earlier, and it's a sad state of affairs to know that they were totally not prepared for this. So, whatever as Siva Sudaram had said, unfortunately, we can't really take it seriously. It's probably the way how FAM could be running things. Could. And although this is pretty unfair to the rank and file workers, officials who are working on a month as permanent staff, when their leadership was like this, is like this. And whatever Siva Sudaram said, because he couldn't give straight answers to straight questions, unfortunately, whatever he said has to be dismissed, because he can't even answer this particular question. Who is going to be in this investigative committee? Who? All he could answer is they are not from the current FAM official or officials or even the council. Fair enough. But who comprises this committee? How many? Who is supposed to be in charge? Who is going to investigate what? How are they going to investigate this matter internally? There is no clear answer on this. It's like comedy, tragicomedy, sandiwara, or whatever you name it, you have it there. And that close to 1 hour press conference is like mind-blowing in terms of the level of stupidity you could get. And it's a bit reminiscent of the infamous Al Jazeera interview that the late Information Minister Zainuddin Maidin gave back in 2008, I think. Yeah, That was more than a decade ago. Over those protests, and he was very jittery in the way he defended the government of the day, and it became the joke of the entire country. And unfortunately, more than a decade on, Datuk S. Sivasudaram unwittingly became the new butt of jokes in the way he tried to defend the organization. Although, in this context, not entirely the deputy president's fault, somebody who would have been more confident in answering questions was unavailable. You might be asking, why throw this poor guy on the spot when he is not totally aware of what's going on? Does that mean he should be absolved of all blame? No. I think as part of the executive committee, he should have been aware that something had been brewing for a long time. It had finally exploded. The whole nation knew about this. All walks, football fans from all walks of life are very angry. They want clear answers on how these 7 players who are now banned from playing get their Malaysian citizenship. From the basic thing on my card, from the process and all these things, it is pretty clear that there's no clear answer. That is the worst part. Although Rob Friend did try to put up a defense in saying that you can say that the guy who has been central in this whole FIFA investigation and who is most aware of the whole process is not anyone from the FAM Council, but possibly, except the suspended General Secretary and Harimau Malaya CEO Rob Friend. And I doubt these two were working together, because it is already pretty clear ever since that autonomous setup in Harimau Malaya was formed that, as Peter Klemonski, the current men's head coach, had said, had they not defeated Vietnam, probably somebody would have exposed things about what Harimau Malaya were doing. So there was a lot of pressure on Flamoski, his coaching staff, Rob Friend and his staff to be able to deliver the results. And on the other hand, FM were just looking, and maybe we do not know that it was probably because of this structure that is currently in place that Peter Flamoski is still in charge of the men's national team. Had this been under the total purview of FM itself, Flamoski would have resigned the moment the first signs of scandal broke up, and that would be the shortest reign of any national coach, even eclipsing what Nello Vinganda had been in charge of Harimau Malaya way back in 2016 or 2017. So, under this autonomous structure, it's Rob Friend who faced the fire of the media. And he was able to tell in a certain structured way that in which how they operate, but it's also pretty clear that they are operating quite separately from FAM. Very separately. It's like this is the left hand and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. It's like they both appear to be waving the same way, but not exactly. So, moving back to the incredulity of this press conference, the madness of it all. I mean, from the way how the hapless deputy president was forced to defend the questions in a way that would have been reminiscent of some coffee shop uncle saying, "Hey, it's not my fault. You make the wrong order." No. But this is a professional press conference. And that performance overall had been shambolic. It's a regurgitation of the same things over and over and over again. And ultimately, the only silver lining when it came to this press conference, and these were the only critical points, and only these two characters really are the real relevant. They are the only relevant party where this case is concerned. Rob Friend and FAM's Defense Counsel Serge Vitos. I do suspect Vitos was hired by Rob Friend to help fight the case, not just for Football Association Malaysia, but also for the 7 players. because Vitos, from what I see in his webpage, he has had extensive experience of defending his clients before the judicial bodies of sports organizations, notably the FIFA Tribunal, and when it came to football, when it came to football specific matters, he has actually advised and represented. If I'm reading it off his webpage, from his company's webpage, a national football federation and a professional football player, which I believe it's the Ecuador case, allowing them to participate respectively in the 2018 and 2022 FIFA World Cup finals. So in this aspect, the Harimau Malaya side, they are wasting no little time. They are throwing all the money they could to put up as solid a rebuttal, as solid an appeal as much as possible to mitigate the punishment of not just the Football Association of Malaysia, but also the 7 affected players. And what Vitor said was particularly telling, because it was he who, even though he was stung by one or two questions that was asked, especially whether he was on a work or tourist visa, which perhaps it's the way how the media in question addressed it that left him fumbling a little, but he was pretty clear when it came to the procedures. He did say that the decision will be taken on the 30th of October by the FIFA Appeals Committee. And if that process failed, it will be further addressed or forwarded, escalated rather, to the Court of Arbitration of Sports. So these international sports lawyers knows what has to be done. And he also did add that this arbitration appeal will take some time to be resolved, because I think the clearest statement came from FAN's defense counsel, Vitos, who actually said, from what I'm reading here, is to protect the players and demonstrate that FM have no involvement in alleged document forgery related to the heritage players' eligibility. Although it has to be noted that neither Fran nor Siva Sudaram had actually answered a very strong query from the media on who is the intermediary involved in those 7 players whose birth certificates were alleged by FIFA to be doctored, where the dates of birth were found in those documents initially submitted to FIFA to be falsified as to be born in somewhere in some part of Malaya at the time of their grandparents' birth. And this is the question that probably no one answered convincingly. Fran had probably sidestepped the issue because it's clear that if a clear answer is given now, it will compromise their defense efforts. And if these things were all leaked to the wider world media as what FIFA's punishments to Malaysian football has already done, then this could jeopardize not just the defense but also primarily the playing careers of those 7 affected individuals. We do not want those 7 who are talented in their ways, who have already strengthened Harimau Malaya considerably in their brief appearance in the yellow and black of Harimau Malaya, to be jeopardized because of this ruling. And it's pretty clear that their careers are really at stake now. So, in Vitor's summary, he also added that in his defense team will want to make FIFA understand that FM as a football institution did not have any implication in any forgery, which was the main accusation that FIFA had thrown at Kelana Jaya. So, in this case, Vitos and friend had already done their part in making this clarification on those documents. But I do suspect where the FM council is concerned, they do need a better representative than the hapless Siva Sudaram to come out and answer the questions. Whether it's the acting president Yusuf Mahadi or some other member who has faced the media before, who has faced questioning from the media, I think it would have helped if it had been Dola Saleh, one of the vice presidents, who had sat down there to face the media. But I do suspect even Dola Saleh would have struggled to answer certain questions which were totally out of his purview. And who knows, he might have given answers that could have totally steered the thing off course. But the selection of personnel to appear in the press conference resembled, and with respect to Friend and Vitos, a group of comedians in the spotlight. Unfortunately, really unfortunately so, and that's how it showed. Now, all Malaysians can do, especially the football fans, especially the fans of Harimau Malaya, can do is to wait for 30th of October, where a decision is expected on the outcome of FM's appeal to them. And as for whether the Assemblies are going to use their own legal team or use the defense council led by Vitos, I think this is where the outcome is going to be pretty interesting. And as we say, when it comes to Malaysian football, the drama is really not over yet. But I think this cracks on those long-standing ways of how Malaysian football works at the administrative level. I think it's finally being exposed. And it may not be a bad thing that Noor Azman Hamzah has been suspended, because he has been rather questionable himself. So perhaps with the comedic performance of Siva Sudaram, perhaps the inner workings of the FN Council may also be exposed as well, because it's pretty clear not everyone has been duly informed on what has been going on. Perhaps the way how the meeting is conducted is as such, and only Yusuf Mahadi knows after Johari Ayub left, because he knew that what was probably coming. Still, that 1 hour in what was supposed to be serious affair became a large part a farce, a afternoon entertainment. That is the best and most polite way I can put it. Pretty silly in a way. Perhaps FM should not have conducted this press conference at all. And then they will be spared from all the fumbling and mumbling and live witnessing of the silliness and ineptitude they showed in floundering for answers, scrambling for clues or any string thread of information that they could just utter out to public. This was how pitiful, silly, and perhaps ridiculous this whole press conference had been this Friday afternoon.